Whatever your expectations are of networking, just put it on the side, even if you're an introvert, because I'm very much an introverted person. But I look at networking in the same aspect of a good movie or maybe a brand, service, or product that I really enjoy. So when I do meet the Mark Leslie Lefebvres of the world, I'm almost excited to want to share this person. And I always lay the groundwork before I do it. So if I'm making the introduction of you to somebody else, I make sure that other person's clear and okay to make that introduction and vice versa with you. But after that, I just look at it like, this is super cool. You absolutely need to know this person. And the reason why I do it is very basic. I just love my friendship pool to be very big. And that's essentially what networking to me is. You have a pool of like-minded business professionals that you feel would work really well together. And I always, and I try not to force it. You know, early on I did, where I would be like, oh, I'm super psyched about Mark Leslie Lefebvre and I'm going to share him with everybody in the world. Hey, Mom, meet Mark. And my mom would be like, what the hell is going on here? So it's knowing who to make the introduction to. So, I mean, I want to make sure that I'm introducing somebody that knows the enthusiasm I have for this person, and they can also see the possibilities in connecting with this person. And I think it's so freaking cool when I see two people I've connected build like a long-lasting bond, and they don't even need me as the glue.
Welcome to the Stark Reflections on Writing and Publishing podcast. There has never been a better time for writers. More information, options, and opportunities are available to you, but navigating these requires insight. Join Mark Leslie Lefebvre as he draws upon more than a quarter century of experience as a writer, a bookseller, and a trusted book industry consultant to explore and reflect on the writing and publishing landscape to help you make informed choices on your writer journey.
Hello, Reflectives, and welcome to episode 391 of the Stark Reflections podcast. This is your host, Mark Leslie Lefebvre. In today's episode, I have an interview with Dale L. Roberts, a self-publishing advocate, award-winning author, and renowned video creator. Dale's YouTube channel, Self-Publishing with Dale, is regarded as one of the premier information resources in the indie publishing community. And Dale is a hell of a great guy whose passion and enthusiasm shines through incredibly well in everything I've seen him do, as well as every interaction I've had with him. It's always a delight to chat with him, and I was thrilled that we got to talk about networking for authors, one of his latest books in a fantastic series of books for authors. Now, Dale is one of those people who is fantastic at connecting people to one another and can forge lasting and meaningful relationships. He has done that for me numerous times over the years. He takes the word networking, which can be a scary and even dirty word, and turn it into something powerful, something beautiful, and even, dare I say, something soulful. But that's coming up later in this episode, this wonderful conversation with Dale. First, let's play a bumper and hear from this episode's sponsor. This episode is sponsored by my book, An Author's Guide to Working with Libraries and Bookstores. It's in the Stark Publishing Solutions series of nonfiction books for authors. And this book is basically going to help you as an author to rise above the digital masses and be relevant to booksellers and librarians by attracting the attention of the curators for those sales channels, by succeeding in getting some of those channels to highlight or spotlight or promote your book to their customers or patrons, and having a bookstore actually consider ordering and stocking your print book, as well as being invited to host or participate in live events at bookstores or libraries, but ultimately standing out as a talented and relevant professional or subject matter expert or even entertainer for booksellers and for librarians. Now, this is being sponsored by this book, and I have a direct sale option for the book. I will have a link to my PayHip store where you can use the coupon code STARK2024, that's all one word, STARK 2024, to get 50% off buying this book from me directly. Yeah, you can also check out the Smashwords end of year sale where you'll be able to get that similar discount, but you can buy it directly from me and get that 50% off. And of special note, with a huge shout out and thank you to my patrons, have a look for your special 75% off coupon code for my patrons. Now check out the December 5th, 2024 post for patrons to find out the coupon code. And not only that it applies to this book, but the other books that it applies to. But that is it for this ad read. As I said, this episode is sponsored by an author's guide to working with libraries and bookstores, because libraries and bookstores are among the most magnificent and beautiful buildings you can get in, as a person, as a reader, but more excitingly, as an author. And now comments from recent episodes. So for episode 390, Author Accounting Made Simple with D.F. Hart, over on the Twitter sphere, Edwin Downward said, listen to an episode of Stark Reflections on accounting for authors. I must admit, as a Canadian, I always have to wonder about what is usually mainly US-based advice, but still seeing enough fundamentals that translate to our foreign way of doing things. That being said, I'm sure even Canadian bookkeepers will cringe at the simplicity of my accounting. Using the cash basis of accounting, I have money that has come in and money that has gone out. Thank you for that comment, Edwin. And yeah, that is very true. Now, I did, with myself, I did get an accountant several years back, probably about, oh God, I guess it's going on 12 years now. I was thinking just about 4 or 5 years ago. And my accountant actually helped me with the tracking of my expenses. Now, this is an accountant who helps me just at tax time, and that's very specifically helping me with, keeping track of my receipts and putting them into the right categories. And yeah, I was very much like you, money coming in, money going out. and now I've gotten a little bit better. I still need to be better at it, but I've gotten a little bit better at identifying the various expenses and how they map to the tax codes that we use here in Ontario, Canada. But that being said, just a reminder that this episode, and even the book that Deanna and I co-authored on Accounting for Authors, is not about tax law, and it's not about the legalities of this work, of this accounting. It is about basic fundamentals of accounting, as you pointed out, Edwin, which is, I think, a really important distinction, because a lot of people, when they hear somebody mention accounting for authors, they instantly gravitate to taxes and laws, and that is not the case at all. That is not Deanna's specialty. That's what a CPA does. She's an MBA, business, and an accountant who's worked as an accountant for, I can't remember how long, but for a long time, and now obviously doing a lot of freelance accounting for authors. But yeah, the accounting principles are the same. Math is math. Calculating margin is calculating margin, whether you're in Canada, the US, the UK, Australia, anywhere. I mean, in the world, margin is margin, costs are costs, and that's the basic fundamentals that Deanna can really help authors with. So thank you for that comment, Edwin. And over on YouTube, Stacey Johnson said, great episode, Mark. Deanna had a lot of really good information to impart. And I want to say thank you for that, Stace. So it's so true. I get to talk to Deanna on a regular basis as part of as we're both board members for Wide for the Win. But getting a chance to talk with Deanna specifically about accounting, I always learn so much. And every time I think I know something, she helps simplify it and helps clarify it in such a fantastic way. So thank you, Stace, and thank you, Edwin. I'm glad you guys appreciated that episode. You, dear listener, can leave comments over at starkreflections.ca for any episode. You can tag me on the socials. You can also go to the YouTube channel, which is nice and easy because the audio only does get ported to my YouTube channel, and we talk a lot about, well, we don't really talk about a lot about, but Dale is a YouTube master, and we talk about YouTube a little bit more, so there will be more YouTubing going on later in this episode. That is it for comments. Okay, just a brief personal update, and I will try to keep this brief. I am continuing to work on the next 2 books for authors that I basically had preview editions available in recent story bundles. Right now, a book in hand. So the interesting thing, I'm working on a book in hand, which is authors, helping authors with print books. So it's not just libraries and bookstores, but I get into a lot of very specific details and extended case studies. So when I first mapped out this book and I wrote about 20,000 words for it to put in the preview edition, I thought it was going to be maybe only another 15,000 words. But as I am continuing to expand in more detail some of the previous chapters I'd put in the preview edition, but also using a lot of very specific and concrete examples from many different authors from different genres in different situations and what they are using. That is really exciting, is something exciting. So I actually thought the book would be done by now, but I realized to do it proper justice, I'm going to need to continue to work at it longer. And similarly, that means that my book on branding, a writer's guide for author branding for success. I can't even remember the title because I think I changed it from author to writer because of something I did with the subtitle, some of the logistics. But in any case, working on those 2 things. But then also I am in the process of doing a traditionally published book and signing the contract on that. I can't remember if I mentioned that in a recent episode, and already planning on my next trivia book for 80s nostalgia movies, or maybe even slightly early nostalgia movies from when I was younger. As my book, Merry Christmas, Shitter Was Full, Trivia Guide to National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, has just come out earlier today. I'm recording this on December 5th. Earlier today, I was in the City News Kitchener 570 AM talk radio, the Mike Farwell Show. I was in the studio with Mike for about half an hour, and we just had a blast talking about Christmas Vacation and sharing trivia. He had me quiz him and you know try to stump me because he knows the movie really well. We just had a blast talking about that. It was so much fun being in studio with Mike. I was in studio with him in October earlier this year talking about One Hand Screaming. We had a blast. And then as I was leaving the studio, he says, I'll have to have you back. We'll have you back just before Christmas, the week of Christmas. I'll have you come in, and we disagree vehemently on whether or not Die Hard is a Christmas movie. And of course, I have a book of trivia about Die Hard. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Mike is a great guy. I love just hanging out with him and chatting books on his radio program. So I'll probably have a link to I'll take the audio from that City News talk radio, the clip, and I'll put it up on audio only on YouTube. So if you're interested, you can check that out and see what that interview with Mike was like. But it was just a heck of a lot of fun. He is a wonderful guy, and he is a book nerd as well. So great to chat with him again and again and get that free publicity, because next week, which is December 19th, December 12th. Sorry, I can't keep track of the calendar. December 12th, Thursday, December 12th, I'm going to be at the Apollo Cinema in Kitchener, Ontario, and that's where I'm officially doing the launch of the book about Christmas Vacation. I will have my Planes, Trains, and Automobiles book and my Die Hard book there. I'll be selling books. I spoke with the manager. She's actually given me 15 minutes to talk to everyone. Just come up and share some trivia and talk a little bit about my book for the audience members. Talk about the perfect audience. Trying to narrow down your target audience. Well, people going to a 35th anniversary screening of the movie may be interested in a book about that movie. So I'm very fortunate that this theater is willing to collaborate with me in this way. But that is it for my personal update. Let's get into this wonderful conversation with Dale L. Roberts. Hey Dale, welcome back to the Stark Reflections podcast.
It's so funny. You and I were just chatting. Like you were like, "Have you been on the podcast before?" Yeah, back on episode 96. So anybody that's,
Wow.
a regular listener of Stark Reflections, uh, go back, check it out 96. It's been a long time. I was wearing glasses back then.
What I want to know is why the hell did I wait so long to have you back on the podcast? You have so many cool things going on.
Oh man, I would say it's probably partially my fault. Just because it's, whenever you and I have chatted, it's usually very brief, and I never want to take up your time because I know that you are a busy man between releasing books, doing successful Kickstarter campaigns, and releasing a freaking beer. Like, dude, what author does that? That's amazing.
People who love beer. But
Yeah.
for those listeners who are not fortunate enough to have experienced Dale L. Roberts before, just can you give my listeners I mean, I would have read your introduction prior to this interview in the episode, but who is Dale L. Roberts?
Oh man, I've been trying to discover that myself. But for the past decade, I've actually been in the writing and self-publishing business. It's crazy to say I've been in the business for a decade.
Wow.
And about 2 years into the business is when I saw my big breakthrough, when I could actually officially say, hey, I am a full-time employed author, self-employed author, and it was able to pay the bills. And at that point, I pivoted to include YouTube content creation because
Right.
I had an influx of a lot of people that were like, hey, how did you do that? And I thought YouTube would just be a simple way of answering people's questions. Little did I know that within a year of doing that, I became hooked. I equally love doing YouTube and writing books. A lot of people like want me to pick either or, but that's like picking your favorite child. There's no favorite child. You love them both
Yeah,
equally, and
yeah.
that's exactly the position I'm in. But all that to say this, that yeah, I'm a self-published author that loves to show other authors how to do this business the right way.
And the thing we were talking about before we turned on record is I had no idea that you were also a horror author. And I got so excited because I'm like, ooh, yay. I didn't realize that. I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't realize you branched into the darkness the way I do as well. That is so like we have the same hairstyle,
Yeah.
same taste in wanting to work and help with authors, but also wanting to write our own things. Were we separated
And
at birth?
and I have to add this because this is not something we've had a discussion before. We're both fans of Rush.
Oh my
So
God, really? You are
yeah,
my
yeah.
long lost brother.
Exactly. Rush was music that I just grew up to, and I can remember I was in high school when Roll Them Bones came out, and I got to see them live up in Detroit before the Silver Dome was taken down. It was
Oh,
a
wow.
very, very large one. Primus opened for them. Such an awesome show. I
Wow.
remember though it was terrible because I had a bladder full, and I had to hold it the whole time because the lines to the bathroom were a mile long. So while I'm like, this is so awesome, at the same time I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, not a third encore. No, Getty, chill, chill.
Oh, I know. I mean, I brought my partner Liz to the last Rush show in Toronto because I wanted her to understand why I was such a big nerd about it, and she lovingly went with me and listened to me rave about how amazing they all are. But she laughed and took a picture of me during intermission in the men's room because there was no lineup because there's no women at a Rush concert, right? Like there was like 300 women and 30,000 people, and so there's no lineup in the women's room, and the lineup for the men's room was just ridiculous, like going to Disneyland to get on a ride.
Right. Yeah. It's 30 minutes and you must be this tall in order to
Yeah,
enter.
exactly. But I digress. I
Yeah.
digress. One of the reasons I wanted to have you come on the show is one of your latest releases, and
Yeah.
is networking for authors. And when I think about you, I mean, you have such a beautifully curated brand, which is absolutely fantastic,
Thank you.
very consistent. I'm looking at your books in the background, at least on your right, my left, and I'm seeing that brand with the blue and the orange and the stuff like that, and very consistently your brand. But
Yeah.
one of the other things that I know about you, and it's very consistent, is I am so privileged and so fortunate not just to know you, but that you are constantly the Seth Godin kind of linchpin person who seems to want to connect people, right? Hey, oh, hey,
Yeah.
you need to know, I want to introduce you to so and so. And that's a part of who you are as
Yeah.
well. So let's dig into this. Now, knowing that
Yeah.
that's a fundamental part of who Dale L. Roberts is he's networking guy. He's going to connect people. He's going to help
Yeah.
other people. It's not just for your own benefit. You're trying to help benefit other people. What the hell,
Yeah.
Dale? Why?
Oh man. Networking sounds like such a dirty word. It seems like something that was cooked up by a corporate exec, and it's almost like networking, and you're like, oh. But the best way I could kind of put it is whatever your expectations are of networking, just put it on the side, even if you're introvert, because I'm very much an introverted person. If I have the opportunity to just stay indoors and not talk to anybody all day, I can do it. I'm very self-entertained. But
Right.
I look at networking in the same aspect of a good movie or maybe a brand, service, or product that I really enjoy. So when I do meet the Mark Leslie Lefebvres of the world, or the Danica Favorites, or the Dave Chessons, I'm almost excited to want to share this person. Like, this is really cool. Like, I really, every time I make this introduction, you've seen my world-class introductions that I do via email, and I always lay the groundwork before I do it. So if I'm making the introduction of you to somebody else, I make sure that other person's clear and okay to make that introduction and vice versa with you.
Yeah.
But after that, I just look at it like, this is super cool. You absolutely need to know this person. And the reason why I do it is, I mean, it's very basic. A lot of people are like, oh, it's because Dale wants to make millions of dollars, so he's going to introduce a bunch of people. No, I just love my friendship pool to be very big. And that's essentially what networking to me is. You have a pool of like-minded business professionals that you feel would work really well together. And I always, and I try not to force it. Early on I did, where I would be like, oh, I'm super psyched about Mark Leslie Lefebvre, and I'm going to share him with everybody in the world. Hey, mom, meet Mark. And my mom would be like, "What the hell is going on here?" So it's knowing who to make the introduction to.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
mean, I want to make sure that I'm introducing somebody that is knows the enthusiasm I have for this person, and they can also see the possibilities in connecting with this person. And I think it's so freaking cool when I see two people I've connected build like a long-lasting bond, and they don't
Yeah.
even need me as the glue. Like, it officially kind of takes off. And I
Yeah.
even led networking for authors with a very interesting story of Kathleen Sweeney from Bookbrush and MK Williams, popular over on YouTube. And I
Yeah.
got to make that introduction, and I literally like choked up when they had sent me, it was it might have been a year before last, they met at NINC down in Florida, and they'd sent a picture. And I was like, oh, this is so adorable. I freaking love this. And building
Yeah.
that business relationship was so incredible because MK had an amazing product and an amazing person she could share with her following. And vice versa, that Kathleen had somebody who was just stellar, very dynamic, somebody who was very popular on YouTube with her following through Bookbrush and such. And so
Right.
that's really, I really look at it is it's not so much of let me grow my paycheck, more so as let me feed my soul. I really love making these connections, and
Yeah.
it really is. I could keep going on and on about it and telling you all these different things, like, my favorite movie. If I want to share my favorite movie, whether it's Die Hard or, in some instances, my favorite movies would be like Aliens. Like, I want to share it with somebody, and I want
Yeah.
to have somebody enjoy that same experience as what I would.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and there's some sort of intrinsic value, I think, in doing that, right? Where you're like, I know there's a likeliness that there's going to be a something that's going to sync between the two of you, and I think you can both benefit from it.
Yep.
I love that. It's such a it's such a long-term strategy, and I hate to paint it as a negative thing, but oh, it's a strategy, but it's a
Yeah.
strategy for bringing yourself an intrinsic value of connecting two really cool people, and then you got to see, and they hit it off, and it was great, and it was great for them, and that was enough.
Yeah. It is, and you have to think about it from a perspective of, okay, each person has their own unique skills, insights, experiences, and their own connections.
Yes.
And then you have this other one, that has unique
Yeah.
experiences, all that type of stuff, and deep pool of networking contacts. And when you can connect these two, all of a sudden this pool has doubled. It's
Yeah.
grown substantially. And yeah, it's a
Right.
long-term play for sure. There are some connections I've made years ago that would finally just comes to the forefront, something would happen with that connection. So
Right.
great example would be I connected Danica Favorite from Publish Drive. She has a podcast called Brave New Bookshelf, and it's all about AI with writing and things like that. And I was like, oh my gosh, you know who you got to meet? You got to meet Marco Motino. He's the founder of Diddly Create, an AI-based writing software. I was like, you absolutely need to meet him. And lo and behold, I just found out this week that Marco's actually going to be on their podcast finally. And I was just like, that's cool. I like to see that pay off like
That
that.
is really cool. Awesome. So you had mentioned earlier that you are an introvert
Yeah.
and yet, despite being an introvert, you've kind of taken a risk and put yourself out there. So for there's a lot of authors who are introverted.
Oh, yeah.
What advice would you have? Like, so introverted author meet networking, and then that's where you see it's like throw the holy water, get it away from me. I don't want to do this.
Yeah, it's tough. I have a couple of different things that actually work against me. One being an introvert. Like I am literally self-entertained. I am the type of person I can spend months in my house, and I did, that before, where I've just
Yeah,
never stepped out once. Just order groceries to come on in, or DoorDash it, or even sometimes my wife will go out. And the other thing is I have ADHD. So those two things put together sometimes can really clash. So for instance, you and I got to see each other at 20 Books Vegas a couple years ago, and you probably didn't know it, but I was literally freaking out the entire time because there were so many people and it becomes a little overwhelming for me.
yeah,
But in the same instance, I know through experience that I see the greatest growth in my career and my personal development when I step into those uncomfortable situations.
right.
When I say, okay, just break the ice. It doesn't matter if it's awkward. Go over to the next person, just be like, it doesn't probably something as simple as, hey, you know what? I'm super overstimulated right now and a little freaking out. How about you? Maybe overstimulated might be the wrong word.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I know what you mean. No,
They're
yeah,
gonna be
yeah.
like looking at me going, creep.
It's like there's a lot of people here. I'm kind of nervous. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
like that
something
kind of.
like that. And,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I always, again, it's all about stepping out of my comfort zone because I
right.
know that that's where I've seen the greatest growth and development in my career and personal development. And it's funny, even as you and I are chatting right now, I'm sweating profusely. And it's
Really.
not because I'm a sweaty person. It's because as soon as I get on a camera, my energy goes up. My brain goes, "Hey, we got to talk about all this stuff." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So, yeah, it's knowing that there's certain mechanisms that help me cope a little bit better.
Right,
I meditate on a daily basis to make sure I keep myself centered.
right.
And I always say, okay, what am I going to do today that's going to push me into that discomfort zone? And not
Right.
in a bad way, it's in a good way. I know that it's going
Yeah.
to be uncomfortable. I know it's not going to be one of my favorite things to do, but I know that the results from stepping out and doing something that I wouldn't normally do is so beneficial to me.
So you mentioned something that's so true for me as well as people see me in public and they see me performing, and I am performing. I am scared shitless beneath the surface. I am nervous of how I'm going to screw up. I am not sure what I'm going to do next. I'm playing it all by the seat of my pants, and yet people claim, "Oh no, you look confident. You look like you knew what you were doing the whole bit." And I'd say the same thing for you. But Dale, you're so damn good at it. How can you be scared? You've done how many hours of YouTube video would you say you've put out in the last 10 years? I mean that's probably an impossible number to calculate, but maybe you've got it somewhere.
I think we're up to 1,700 videos now.
1,700
1,700.
videos.
Yeah.
How many hours of you being Dale, being interviewed by people, putting out your own videos? Like think about that. This is kind of like there's no doubt that there's an AI out there that can completely fake the two of us. There's so much of our content out there, right?
I hope so. Yeah, that would be so fantastic. I just want to get paid if that's going to be the case.
Yeah, that's what I want too. I want to, well, I mean, that's why I have the AI voice too. I was like, eventually I want to license this so I don't have to do the thing and it can
Yeah,
do it for
exactly.
me and the clone can go to work while I just eat bonbons and drink beer.
Exactly.
No, okay. So I guess the point I was making is how did you get to the point? How did you get to the point where it seemed natural? Did you have to fall a
Yeah.
few times to get to that?
Oh, I've fallen quite a few times. quite a few times. There's been meltdowns, there's been mistakes, tons of mistakes, too many mistakes sometimes.
Right.
But I always just remind myself of that old saying. It's not about the number of times that you fall down, but about the number of times that you get up.
Right.
And there are times, and I think you know this, you've done interviews, you've done presentations, you spoke all around the world, and you will probably step off the stage and immediately start to pick apart everything that you said. And for me, I will pick apart everything I say, and then sometimes I'll dwell on some of the silliest things. And so
Right.
I've trained myself more recently. And a big shout out to Nick Thacker. I think he was one of the people that helped me out probably about a year or so ago. He's like, "Is anybody dying?" And I was like, "No." He goes, "Then everything's fine." So I literally give myself that every single time when I'm
Right.
freaking out about something. It's late at night. I have something that just recurs in
Oh
my
yeah.
head. And I just go, is anybody going to die? And I'm like,
Okay.
no. Okay, calm down, Dale, because everything is going to be totally fine. But yeah, I think it comes with practice,
Right.
lots and lots of practice. Because if you went back and watched one of my first videos and looked at more recent videos, not only was the production value much better now, but
Right.
back then there was less confidence, there was less straightforwardness. There was a lot to it that I think that I hadn't discovered myself. And I feel like I'm still discovering myself. And I think everybody goes through that lifelong journey of
Right.
figuring out who am I? What do I do? What is the things that make me tick? How
Hmm.
can I present my best self forward here to the people that, come across my path? And so, yeah, that's again, if you ever find yourself in a position that you're beating yourself up internally, just remind yourself the Nick Thacker phrase: is anybody going to die?
Yeah.
No? Great. Then move on. Now, if somebody's going to die, definitely panic.
Yeah. 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 Then there's some concern there. Okay. So
Yeah.
so how do you I guess how do you recommend that authors would approach networking? I guess would it be potentially in person or other ways?
Ooh, there are so many ways that you can look into doing it. What I would say is start with what you're most comfortable with at first. I know it said step out of your comfort zone,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
important that you at least show up.
Okay.
Just show up. So in-person conferences, if you're able to afford the hotel, trans, and all that type of stuff, or if it's local and it's free, great, fantastic. If you can afford it, go for it. But I think by and large, online networking is probably going to be the path of least resistance, the
Yeah.
way that you can
Okay.
connect
Yeah.
with other authors. A great example would be, I believe I've introduced you to SD Houston. Shannon's just a
Yeah.
fantastic gal.
Amazing.
I
Yeah.
love her to death. Absolutely one of my best buds out there. And Shannon is she's a connector. She's so much of a connector
She
that
really is, and she's everywhere.
yeah, everywhere. Like, and I'd be like, if I don't see her live streaming, she's going to be in somebody else's video or
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
their forum or in
Or
their
even
Discord.
commenting and participating in
Yeah.
different ways, like on stage from voice shouted from backstage, whatever it is, right?
Yeah, well, she is so good at what she does that she actually will live stream some writing sprints or even just some author roundtables
Yeah.
of different people that she knows. And I don't expect everybody to do exactly what Shannon does, but it just kind of goes to show that if you don't see the opportunity, make the opportunity. And that's one thing that I really admire about Shannon is she makes the opportunity. She's like, you know what? I like this person, this person, this person. Let's all get together and we're going to
Hmm.
chat live on the air. If you don't want to chat live on the air, you can always just get Zoom. Zoom allows you up to like 40 minutes free on the free accounts and
Yeah,
such.
yeah,
So
yeah,
you
yeah.
don't have to pay a dime for something like that or Google Chat or Hangouts. I don't know what the heck they're calling it
Meat
these
or
days.
something. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
Google
yeah.
Meet. I think that's it. Yeah, just figure it out. If you don't see the opportunity, create the opportunity. But I will say this, that if you're looking for something in person, visit your local library. If you're an author, you need to get into libraries. And I don't care if your book doesn't make it in there. Go into the local libraries because there's so many opportunities there. There's
Yes.
workshops, there's conferences, there's different author meetups as well. Like go meet an author. Like I've done this so many times. And by the way, it's the wildest thing, Mark. I'm not sure. This probably happens to you quite a bit, where I will go to like an author, what's the word I'm looking for? Just a book show of some sort.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm lacking good words at this point.
Conference.
Yeah, it's
No, or
just
book show.
everybody's yeah, they're showing their wares and everything
Oh
else
yeah,
like
okay,
that.
gotcha. Yeah, yeah.
And any rate, a book fair. There we go. How about
Fair,
that,
fair, a
Dale? Good.
fair. Oh, that's right.
We'll work together, you and me.
Let me go get my thesaurus.
There's been some times where and this was not too long ago. I went down to Grove City, Ohio, and they had a book fair there because someone had mentioned to me on Instagram last year. They were like, "Hey, there's a book fair. You gonna, put books there?" I was like, "Heck yeah!" I went over there and saw it was sold out. I was like, "Well, shoot." I'm like, "That's not gonna stop me from going." I went. And it was the wildest thing. I got to meet some really super cool authors, and I got picked out by like three different people. It was the weirdest thing. I'm like, "Oh, how do you know me?" And they're like, "Well, you are wearing your orange shirt, and you're a little tall. It's kind of hard to hide." And I'm like, "Wow." And so that was a really big trip, being able to meet these other authors in person and be able to chat with them and know a little bit more about them. So that would be one of the best ways, is just to the best step forward is going to be what's the most comfortable, even if it's slightly discomforting, if it's
Yeah,
slightly uncomfortable,
right.
do that. So I think Woody Allen said some time ago that 80% of success is showing up. And I
Yeah,
believe that is just show up, just try to get in there. Even if you are a wallflower, at least step into that book fair,
yeah,
look around, okay, eyeball everybody's books, and then step out if you have to. But I would
yeah.
encourage you that you try at least one human interaction of, "Hey, I like your book cover. That looks fantastic. Where did you get it done?" That right there strikes up an amazing conversation every single time.
Oh,
I'll
for
go over
sure.
to a booth
Yeah,
and I'm like, "That's a cool book cover. I really dig that. Where'd you get it done?" And I'll tell you what, it works really, really well. So,
yeah.
yeah,
And it's not that scary to compliment someone on something that you actually admire, because, like I
yeah,
always said, if you have if so if there's something about someone that strikes you in a positive way, by all means share it with them. What are you holding it in for? That
yep.
chances are they're having self-doubt like nobody's business, because we all do. It never hurts for them to hear something positive.
Yep, absolutely. I think,
Yeah.
it, of course, conversely speaking, you don't want to walk up to somebody and be like, "Your book cover is bowling shoe ugly. What you got
Well,
going
no, no,
on
no.
here?"
Yeah, no, no. They probably
Unless you're
get
Don
enough of
Rickles,
that. Yeah.
if that's the case, you're Don Rickles. Someone probably expect that, but
Don
I think
Rickles.
Don is deceased these days, so that's probably not going to be possible.
I love that you pulled someone from like Don Rickles. We're
It's
old if we know who Don Rickles is. I
yeah,
love
yeah.
that.
Everybody's gonna have to Google it up now. They're like,
Yeah, I was
"Who's
like, who's
Don
that guy? Well,
Rickles?"
he had very snarky comments about, like, he was very funny. So,
He
okay.
was. He was. His delivery was fantastic.
It was. Yeah, I mean, think about that. He made that impression, right? That was his brand. That was something he put out there. And
Yeah,
and we reach for him because it's an easy one. Yeah, like Don Rickles.
yeah.
Or like Dale L. Roberts, who has that style and the brand and the voice that you recognize because you how many thousands of hours of
Yeah,
of Dale
exactly.
are out there. I mean, I often get recognized mostly because someone's heard me on Joanna Penn's podcast. That's usually where
Oh,
most authors will have heard my voice as well. And I was like, well, I have a podcast too. So,
right, right. Exactly.
well, I mean, but then there's Joe's podcast, and then there's my podcast, not even on the screen. So, anyways, I wanted to get to the next one. So,
Yeah.
collaboration and networking. How do those two worlds intermingle?
Mm. Collaborating and networking. Obviously, being able to connect with somebody will let me walk this back here just a second. As authors, it's a solopreneur type thing. We're doing a lot of this stuff on our own. At least even as
Yeah,
self-published authors, indie authors, you're having to go solo a lot of things, and it can be very lonely. And I'm sure you could be successful as a solo author. I'm sure you could probably take care of business and things like that. But can you
right.
imagine if you can connect with somebody else, build a network of people that could be able to assist you in certain areas that you wouldn't necessarily be able to do? So, for instance, let's say you're an author that you don't have a podcast, you have no desire to start a podcast. Heck, you don't even have the equipment for a podcast. But let's just say that you have a good friend and Mark Leslie and say, "Hey, you got a podcast. Can I come on over and share just a little bit more about my latest book?" Something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
That is one way to look at it, is collaborating and working with other people. You obviously need to have that connection first, because I don't know that Mark would have been as willing to have me come on his podcast if I just cold prospected. I'm not
Yeah.
saying he wouldn't have, but I think it certainly helps that we've built this relationship between each other that I can be able to reach out to him and ask for that. And just to kind of illustrate the point here is, um, I've got my podcast channel that I do on YouTube, and I have my main channel, which is nearly 100,000 subscribers. And I get requests to get interviews all the time, like a
Yeah.
lot. I would say I get at least one per day, one
Yeah.
every other day, where someone, and it's a random person I don't know. And I got to be straight up honest with you that the people I interview are the people that I already know or that I'm super interested in getting to know.
Yeah.
Most of the time, like it's not cold prospecting people that I bring over to my podcast. It's
Right.
people that I find very interesting and that I want people to kind of know a little bit more about.
Right.
So that's the big difference maker. Now, am I saying you can't go out and pull cold prospect to get on podcasts? No, not by any stretch, but it certainly helps that you start to build that relationship because then you can see more opportunities. And this is not
Right.
just podcasts here that we're talking about. It could be book cover design or
Yeah.
finding the right editor, or
Yeah.
for that matter, some people struggle to find good beta readers. I
Yeah.
mean, good Lord, if you go and you network and work with people that are within your niche, let's say I'm a horror writer, I would probably reach out to someone like Mark to do beta reading because I know that he's going to give me good, candid insights that's going to make my work much better.
Right.
And having that reliable beta reader on speed dial is so much better than trying to grind it out for that matter going over to like a platform like Upwork or Fiverr to hire a beta reader who may or may not give you the best work there is. So this is where I say like that collaboration will be so much more successful as if you've built that relationship in advance. And it was
Right.
something you mentioned before. It's a long-term strategy. Now, for the record, Mark, I'm not asking you to do beta reading for me. I've got three good solid beta readers, love them to death. But
Yeah.
that's just to kind of illustrate the point that
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
you'll be able to get more accomplished by having a deeper network.
And similarly, if you were to reach out and say, "Hey, Mark, I have a new book on networking for authors," I'm gonna go, "Well, I know Dale's content is good. I love chatting with him. It's a good excuse to chat with him for work, even though it's pleasure. I'm gonna learn something, and my audience is gonna learn something. So it's like, ding, 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 ding. It hits all the buttons. It's like it's gonna be good value for me, for my audience, and I'm gonna have a good time doing it. Yeah, winner, winner, chicken dinner, right there. But
Yeah.
uh similarly, I might say, Dale, you have a new book out. You got to come on my podcast. Like, come on, how come you didn't tell me about it? Like, what the heck, man? So it works both ways, I
Yep.
think. So
Sometimes you don't even have to ask. They're so eager to work with you that
yeah,
you've built
yeah,
that relationship that literally all you have to do is be like, yeah, I'm getting ready to release a book. Oh, that's it. You're coming on. Like a good
yeah,
mutual friend of ours, Maddie Dalrymple's like, oh yeah, you need to be on my podcast.
yeah. Of
That's it.
course you do. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I was just like, yeah, done deal. Love me some Maddie, by the way.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I just had her and Michael Aron, two amazing people. I had both of them on because they just released a co-authored book as well. And I was like, yeah, I get to talk to both of them at the same time. This is sweet. So, okay. All right. Nearing the end of the interview. So, okay, we're talking about the perks and the bonuses and the networking, the collaboration, and all the great, beautiful things that can happen. What are
Yeah.
some of the mistakes that you've seen authors make when it comes to the networking word?
There are so many things that we can kind of dive into, and I've, covered a lot of the mistakes over in my book and such. But let me give you a good example is um, don't just assume that someone wants to get to know you. Don't just assume that you should stuff your business card into someone's hand. I can't tell you the number of networking meetings and business mixers where someone comes over. I have no more than introduce myself that they're stuffing their card in my hand. I don't want to throw your trash away. You throw your trash away for yourself. I don't know you yet. So just remember, it's much like dating. There is a little bit of finesse to it. You don't want to just be so, hard and heavy into it that you're going to turn people off. Take your time. Get to know the other person. I think this is the biggest mistake I see is a lot of people want to talk me. That's great. That's fantastic. You are an excellent person. You are great at what you do, but no one's going to care until they know that you care. And so when you're doing your introductions and you're meeting someone, ask questions. When you think you've asked enough questions, ask even more questions because by asking these questions, first of all, people are going to find you more interesting because they're going to be like, oh my gosh, this person wants to know a little bit more about me. They're going to keep talking and such. And then you're going to uncover some common denominator between the two of you. some little gem like, oh, Mark loves Rush. I dig Rush too. Fantastic. We would have never known that out the get-go. We would have never been able to say to each other, be like, hey, I'm Mark, I'm Dale. I love Rush. You do too? We're best buds at this point. No, it
I mean,
doesn't
how
work
many
that
years have
way.
I known you and I didn't know that about you?
That is true. That
We
is
didn't
true.
lead
Yeah.
with Rush. What the hell's wrong with us?
Yeah, I don't know. And I've been waiting this whole time, I guess. Want to drop the bombshell just for this specific instance.
Oh, it's
But,
just,
don't rush the art, I was going to say the art of building a relationship. Don't rush relationships. Think
right.
of it much in the same way that you would be going on a first date with somebody.
Yeah.
Take it slow, get to know them. If you really dig them, ask for their business card, or how can I get in touch with you? In a
Yeah.
lot of instances, what I'll do is I'll ask for a business card. I'll take a picture of that thing. I'll give it right back to them because I'm just going to throw it out anyways. And then
Yeah,
I
you
go
don't
ahead
need
and
it. You just need the information on it. Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
need the information on it, which, by the way, I've got a really cool little technique. This is not in the book. I've got a pop socket on the very back of my phone, and I put a QR code on the very back of that. So that way, anytime I'm talking to somebody, they want more information, scan, boom, we can keep talking.
Oh my God, that's so amazing. It's so and easy enough. Like I can put it like a sticker, like my beer sticker on the back of my phone. All I have to do is
Boom.
bam, just scan that, baby.
It's right there. You're going to have your phone on you anyways. And
Yeah.
so that's one of the best ways to do it. Again, don't pull that QR code and be like, scan this. My name
Yeah,
is
yeah. No, I'm
Dale.
just
See
gonna
how
walk around
important
and
I
put it in
am.
people's faces. No, no, this is once you get to that natural part in the conversation where,
Yeah.
hey, maybe we should order some food.
Yeah.
Now that we've had a drink, would you like maybe you should order some food now and talk a little bit longer, or whatever the case may be.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you
You
go.
never want to rush that, and just take your time. And I, I just can't stand it when I go to a business mixer and someone stuffs a business card in my hands and I've
Yeah,
barely even known them. I'm like, I don't know you. And here's a really cool thing, by the way, as soon as you do get a chance to introduce yourself, this is to all authors. Authors are a rare breed to most people outside of our little bubble here.
yeah,
We're a rare breed. We wrote and published a book. Whether you're trad pub or you're self-published, you have a book out on the marketplace.
yeah,
That is a special thing. You're almost like a unicorn to most people out in the world. So as soon as you say that you're an author and you've got a published book, or you're an award-winning author or a best-selling author, you know what's next, thing is, I've always wanted to write a book, and then boom, people are then interested in you, and then you can start to go ahead and bloviate all about yourself because they want to know more about it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That is fantastic. I love that. Dale, so the book Networking for Authors is part of a series that you're writing. So what are some of the other books in the series? Because people probably listening going, "Ooh, I want to get that," but what else am I going to be looking for?
Well, I've already got the award-winning self-publishing for new authors. That started out the full series. We went into advanced self-publishing because I actually wrote that as one giant tome at one point or another between the
Yeah.
new authors and the advanced authors, and I ended up separating those two.
Okay.
I did something on Amazon advertising, and then networking was the fourth one. The fifth one is due out actually in less than 8 days,
Ooh, so
and
it'll
it
probably
is
be out by the time this episode hits.
exactly. That is going to be how to write a nonfiction book in 24 hours. I actually did
Whoa.
and chronicled the whole process on my YouTube channel, and now people can officially get their hands on the book and see, is it trash or is it great? And I like to think it was pretty great. Future books in the series, I'm covering YouTube for authors,
Yeah.
email marketing for authors, and I'm also going to be doing a second edition update to 3 of my previous books about Amazon keywords, Amazon reviews, and promotional strategies.
Awesome. Oh, it's like the winner's dozen. This collection of the 12 books that you're putting together. Dale, thanks for coming on. Can you please let my listeners know where they can find more Dale L. Roberts?
You can definitely look me up over on YouTube, Dale L. Roberts. I'm sure if you just search up Dale Roberts, it'll probably pull me up as well. YouTube's a good place to look, or you can go to selfpublishingwithdale.com. Again, that's selfpublishingwithdale.com.
Awesome. Dale, thanks again for hanging out with me.
Thank you.
Okay, always great, as I said, to chat with Dale. So the first thing I want to reflect on is when Dale talks about how connecting people. He said, "It lets me feed my soul." Wow, that passion and how he takes a dirty word like networking and turning that passion of sharing a cool experience. Oh, there's a thing and it happens, when you're talking to somebody and you haven't seen them in a while, like, oh, there's this great show that I've seen and you should check it out. Or, oh, I've tried this new restaurant, this local restaurant, you should check this out. You really, when you experience something that's so good and so satisfying and so rewarding, and you want to share it with someone else. And that's a great way of taking something scary and freaky like networking and turning it into something really amazingly positive. I've never heard anyone use that way to describe networking, and Dale has nailed it perfectly. And again, he talks about being an introvert and being overwhelmed and stuff like that, but then focusing on that and the intrinsic value that he gets from connecting people. And then, of course, even some of the strategies that he recommends, like, if you see a great book cover or something that looks really interesting, you can compliment someone on it and then get a story from them. And then even asking questions, how the asking questions can lead to those connections and those bridges. And if you remember when I was talking to Andy Lidstone just a few episodes back, when he was talking about bridges, it goes hand in hand. Dale's strategy and talking about networking and what Andy said, they just go synonymously. I really should connect Andy and Dale. I'm gonna make a point of connecting these two guys because I think they're both wonderful folks, and I think they help each other. They complement one another in the types of things that they like to do. See, there you go. Dale's just inspired me to want to connect people. So think about that in your own life as an author. Are there people that you think you can connect? Now, but potentially it's a great editor you've worked with, or a great cover designer that you've worked with. And I know I've connected a number of people to Juan Pedron, who does most of my covers lately for most of my books lately, and even connecting the right editor to the right reader as well. You've had a great experience. They like this genre, and I think you guys would be a great connection. So any of those connections that you can help make, I do get an internal reward from it. So there's a satisfaction in those connections. Dale's really good at that. My friend Robert J. Sawyer is also really good at that sort of connections. He takes great pride in connecting people as well. The second thing I want to reflect on is just towards the very end of the interview, Dale reminded us how authors are a rare breed. Now, and this happens to us all the time. We go into writers' conferences, and you're there, and everyone there's a writer. Whether they've written and published a book or whether they're just working on a book, everyone's a writer. But that is not the case at the average dinner party you go to. That's outside of the author community. And you got to remember that. And so that is something that is so interesting. And I forget it all the time because I hang out with authors all the time. But most of the people I interact with outside of the author community are not writers as well. So it's this different, in somewhat mysterious world with a lot of misperceptions on how much writers actually make, etc. But that's something to lean into as well, especially when you're feeling self-doubt and again, comparisonitis, where I look at my YouTube channel, I look at Dale's YouTube channel, and I get all whatever. But then I look at most people don't have a YouTube channel as well, so it's still a rare breed that you have content that you're putting that stuff out there. But I think it could be a way to help you get over any of that negative, that self-doubt that you may have as well. And the imposter syndrome that often faces us is reminding you, as an author, you're kind of a rare breed. You're one of a kind. That's pretty sweet. That's pretty awesome. You are pretty awesome. So don't you forget that. I'm sure Dale would want me to remind you of that, because that's one of the bits of advice he left us with at the end of the interview. How about you? What are some of the things that Dale said that we talked about in Networking for Authors that stuck with you? I'd love to hear your comments. You can leave them, as I said, starkreflections.ca, tag me in the socials, etc. Leave comments wherever this is posted. And then sort of the last thing, it's sort of an additional personal update, but I was just going over the notes, and Dale's at how many 100,000 subscribers. 1,700 videos, like all the things on YouTube. Well, you know what? I'm pretty close to what to me is a massive landmark for my YouTube channel. I am 11 subscribers away. I'm 11 subscribers away from getting to 1,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel. Getting to that 4 digits after a long time. Now, again, I'm not dedicated to producing regular content in the way that Dale is. So it's been a long, slow build for me, but I'd be pretty excited if you would take a gander, and I'll have a link to my YouTube channel. You should obviously go subscribe to Dale's because his content is absolutely amazing. But hey, while you're on the YouTube, maybe subscribe to my channel and help me hit that 1,000. Let's see if we can hit that 1,000 before the end of the year, before the end of December 2024. Well, that's it for my begging. That's it for my reflections. That is it for this episode of the podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I really do appreciate having you listen. And a huge thank you to all of my patrons who support this podcast over at patreon.com/Stark Reflections. Greatly appreciate you guys there. You don't need to support the podcast financially. You can support the podcast by commenting, by leaving a review, even a line or two, just a few words. Wherever you listen to podcasts, that is very, very helpful. But sharing is caring. The thing that really does help is sharing this episode or any other episode that you listen to that you found value in with somebody else, that you can help them discover that content and benefit from that content. It could be like you're being a little mini Dale L. Roberts, trying to connect people with really fun content. See how I tied that back? But thanks again for listening. As I said, this is the end of the episode, so until next week and until next episode, I am, as always, Mark Leslie Lefebvre, and as always, wishing you, dear writer, great writing and good Stark reflections.
Thank you for listening to the Stark Reflections podcast. You can find show notes for each episode at starkreflections.ca.
The music for this podcast, Laser Groove, was composed and produced by Kevin MacLeod. Check out more of Kevin's great music at incomptech.com.